So one of the more, I would say, complicated exercises to do for most people is a deadlift. And part of that is just your day-to-day use of movement throughout the day, or just generally in life. It doesn't have that movement. So the biggest thing I have to kind of teach people is that the deadlift, what's happening is your hips are going back. So they're being moved in a horizontal way, and they're not going down. At least doing your first rep, you got to pick up the weight. But when you're actually doing the deadlift, at least maybe from an RDL standpoint, so an RDL is a Romanian deadlift. And the idea with the Romanian deadlift is that your starting position at the top, and you're going down the end position, come back up. And the end position is slightly different for everyone. Whereas maybe a more conventional deadlift or a strength deadlift, it's all the way down to the ground and then back up. So your hips will go down in that case, but just generally to learn the movement, what you need to understand is that you have to move your hips back to start the movement from here and keep your hips higher. So your hips aren't going to go down. They're going to stay there, and then you have to move your chest in a way that helps you still keep that center mass kind of between your feet. So if I keep my chest too upright and try to just move the hips, when it's happening, I want to fall back. So you have to balance that movement with hips back, chest forward, and everyone's going to do it slightly different just based on how long their femur is. Myself, I have to get quite angled. And there's different variations of deadlifts. There's a stiff-legged deadlift, which means your legs are pretty stiff, as the name suggests. And that's just to bias the hamstrings. Whereas if you do a more conventional deadlift, what ends up happening is you're going to have a slight knee bend just because your hips are going back and you're letting your knees drive forward just slightly. But what you don't want to do in a deadlift is do it in a way when you're looking down, your feet disappear like that. Whereas if you're doing a deadlift, you should be able to see your toes and your feet at all times. And the idea with the deadlift is to work the hamstrings and the glutes, so your butt cheeks. So I find for most people when they're starting a deadlift, what really helps is to do a few different drills. And by drills, I mean just different movement patterns in a way that reinforces that movement because, like I said, it's not really a natural movement. So one of the ones I use with clients quite a bit, if they're brand new, is kind of 1 foot away from the wall technique or tool. So what you're going to do is take roughly your own foot and then take a slightly wider than shoulder width stance. Use a dumbbell. You can put on top itself like that, or you can use a kettlebell. And what you're going to do is you're going to start the movement by pushing your hips back, and you want to eventually come close to touching the wall, if not touch it. So while letting your chest naturally fall, while keeping a nice natural curve in your lower back. You don't want to look like a dog taking a poop. You want that nice natural curve in the lower back. So once again, 1 foot away from the wall, just outside of shoulder width, push the hips back, come close to touching the wall, and from there, hips forward, and try to keep in your mind the hip height that you're not going down, hips are staying on in the same plane, meaning they're not going to leave this plane, they're going to stay that height the whole time. So from there, up, back down. So when you get comfortable with having the weight here and doing that movement well, then you can incorporate, say, 2. The reason why doing 1 to start in that fashion is easier is that these dumbbells aren't going to get in the way of kind of your shins. So when you go to having 2, what you might need to do, take your stance, go a little tighter. Think your ankles are just underneath your hips. And from there, same thing. You can do that 1 foot away. Me, it's about a little under. Don't want to touch the wall. Touch, back up. So the in-range motion for these, if you're doing a Romanian deadlift, is called that max stretch in your hamstrings. Where you can, from the side, chest about hip height. You don't want to go past that where you get that rounding. The whole idea is to keep this nice, straight, strong lower back position. You don't want this kind of here, which I see a lot. And part of that kind of curving that happens is because you're not shooting the hips back while letting that chest naturally fall. So it is a weird kind of movement to do. I would say of all the exercises I've taught over the last 12 years, it's one that people have the most difficulty with. So there's a bunch of different variations you can do. There's the dumbbell one that I just showed you. There's also the barbell. I recommend everyone starting with just 1 dumbbell or kettlebell, then progress to 2 dumbbells. And then probably the next one after that, or maybe a little earlier, is something like a trap bar. So what a trap bar is an octagon type setup. And what it allows you to do is not have issues with knee clearance in the bar, which I'll show you in a sec. So imagine there's weight on here. So you'll see there's nothing in the way of my knees. So it allows you to do that movement a little more naturally. And like a squat, what you want to do is have that center of mass. So think of this as my center of mass. You want that center of mass to be between your feet, your midfoot, so almost where your arch is between your feet. If I drift forward, my lower back's gonna have to do a lot of work to keep my center mass in the middle. And if I fall backwards, if I lean backwards, you can see I want to fall back. So the whole goal is, once again, just like a squat, is to move your body in a way that allows you to keep that center mass between midfoot. So now what you see with the bar is that you have to have that technique quite good so that when you're doing the deadlift, the bar doesn't hit your knees. So I don't have proper technique. I'm kind of rubbing my shins here, where from the side, if I move in a way that you should with a deadlift, the knees aren't going to have any issue with bar clearance. So see, if I move my hips first, the knees just get out of the way. You want to keep the bar pretty tight to your body, but if you move in a way, proper way at least, it allows you to not have issues with clearance. So a few other pointers about the deadlift is you want to think of your hands like ropes. They're not going to be bending. So if you're holding a barbell or a dumbbell, you're not doing it in a way that has a bend, because what that means is that all that tension is being used by your upper body, and you're having to hold on to that weight pretty strong. So kind of think of the strings that are just straight. So the more straight your hand when you're doing the movement, the less work it has to do. You just have to do grip strength to hold on. The other thing too is when you're using a barbell or a trap bar, you kind of have to take the slack on the bar. So there's 2-point movement before getting going. So you can hear it, maybe not with this one, but the bar is going to bend a little bit. So when you get a lot of weight on there, what can happen is if you're going really heavy, you go to get ready and you get going, and then the bar bends and it stops you. So what you want to do is, when you get started, is take that slack out by pulling up on the bar without the intention of lifting it quite yet. Just to take the slack out, and then you start from there. So that's one pointer. Another one is when you start lifting a little heavier with the barbell, you want to think if you're going to push and pull at the same time. So hard to see when I do it, but the idea is, check my lower back. I want to push and kick into the ground forcefully as I stand up. You're not just standing up and let your lower back do a little more work. You want to forcefully, because when the bar is really heavy, it's hard to lift off the ground. So you want to pull and kick at the same time into the ground. And what that does is it activates your legs to help protect your hips and your lower back, so you don't tend to get tweak something or whatever. And then the last thing I'll say is just neck position. So what I find is some people, when they're doing deadlift, they're keeping their chest upright or their neck, and they're kind of right here. You kind of want to think, just tuck your chin, keep it in neutral position. So neutral meaning this is up, down, and right in the middle. When you do a deadlift, you're going to end up looking ahead of you and then up and then back down. Just that chin's, you're not kind of armed here. So those are the main tips. I'm sure you might read some stuff online where there's different ways to do it, different cues. Everyone kind of needs a different kind of feedback. By no means are everything I'm saying in this video everything I would say to a client. I usually try to minimize that. I try to pick 1 or 2 things, see if it connects, then keep building on that until it makes sense for that client. But the driving home message is that we need to move in a way that keeps that center mass between our feet. So you, based on your anatomy, your structure, you have to do it maybe slightly different, but in a way that biases all that weight kind of in that midfoot, so that you're getting maximum tension on the hamstrings and not the lower back.